Welcome to the channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. So on today's video, I am reviewing a San Martin for you guys. This is the SN0007GJS. And of course, this is a 62 mass homage. But not only that, they've taken it a step further and they've come up with a watch that basically does not exist. They've turned the 62 mass into a chronograph. And I gotta say, I do like what they've done on this occasion. In the pictures, I wasn't too sure. But when I did receive the watch in hand, I thought, you know, that's a nice thing they've done there. They've thought outside the box clearly, and they've made something which didn't really exist. So it's like half a homage. And I think for the most part, it does work really well. And of course, this is going to be entirely subjective. Some people will like it, some people won't like it. Now, throughout this review, I'm just going to give you the things which I really like about the watch. Some of the things I don't like, and be warned that they have made a critical failure in my opinion. There's a critical flaw with this watch, and yeah, I think for the price as well, it's not something that they should have released this watch with. So there's a couple of things to talk about on this model. Now, I did review the previous, you know, the newer 62 mass homage, as you saw, the 37 to 38 millimeter version, and don't worry, I won't be peeling any potatoes on this video. On the last one, if you haven't seen the review, I did manage to peel a potato pretty well with that sharp case of theirs. Now, initially, I thought this was exactly the same as the previous model, but dimensionally is quite different. It's closer to the older San Martin watches, the 62 mass homage that they did. So you've got a 41 millimeter case diameter, which is including the bezel. Without the bezel, it is around 40 millimeters. You also got that lug to lug of 49.8 millimeters, so just under 50 mil on that lug to lug. Thickness of 14 millimeters because you do have a box style sapphire crystal, which does increase that thickness slightly, and with a 20 millimeter lug width. Now, you also got 100 meters of water resistance, and the rest of the specs are more or less the same as the previous one. You know, the sapphire, stainless steel, etc. You got 120 click unidirectional bezel with a stainless steel brushed bezel insert, which I absolutely love. And then the only thing different in this watch is in terms of movement, which is the Seagull ST1901. It's a mechanical hand winding chronograph movement. It's a column wheel design. You have seen that movement featured in a lot of watches from Sugues. I think that is their proprietary movement because they put that movement in a lot of their watches. Now, my experience with them, they do work. They are quite good movements, quite vintage. But the price, this is where I've got a massive issue with this particular watch as well. The price is £282. Now, in dollars, I think that's around the $350 mark. I think for that movement, it is way overpriced. You've seen the Sugues Daytona homage that I reviewed on this channel. Now, that uses a clone 7750 movement, and you know, that's around the same price. So I think if I'm going to pay that much, even from San Martin, I think they should have gone for an automatic chronograph movement. That would have been a lot better. It would have been easier to justify in the watch as well. But you know, with this one, I don't think it justifies it at all, especially with some of the issues that I've seen on the previous model. They are also present, although not as bad. So the edges along the case are not nearly as sharp. It is still quite edgy, but yeah, not as bad as the previous one. The bracelet is more or less the same. The one I showed on my previous version had a bit of a QC issue on one of the links, but that isn't present on this one. But I think what I'll do, I'll replace this bracelet out and put it on a much nicer leather strap just to change it up slightly. Now, let's talk about a few of the things which I really love about this watch. I have to say the markers on that dial and that dial combination is stunning. You can put that in pretty much most watches and it'll look great. That sunburst grey dial is just such a catchy dial with that San Martin quality that you see on the applied hour markers. You can see fully polished frames, 3D applied markers, perfectly applied. Now, I also like the way they've done the sub dials on this watch. You can see they've been subset, but the outer markers on those sub dials have been sloped at a very nice angle. It's a nice look there. Polished hands, you know, impeccable finishing. The logo at 12 o'clock, yes, again, quite a subjective one. People are torn on this. I actually quite like it. I like the different levels of finishing and how that reacts with the light. The handset, right, beautifully done. You've got that top cap on the second hand, which finished it really well, and you've got the chamfered edges on the hands, the polished center on the hands, really high quality hands used, and as well as the dial. You've got the ST1901 in red, and the water resistance rating just below that. You also got chapter ring on this one, nice black chapter ring printed in white, and you do have some nice symmetry on the dial as well. So the dial visual is brilliant. I can't fault it at all. I will say there is a slight issue with this watch though, and I don't know if it was caused by me or it was caused in transit. I definitely cannot blame San Martin for this, I have to say. but that minute hand has become loose. So if I just knock it down, you'll see that hand moves. And I only really noticed it just before the review. Initially, when the watch came, I did give it a once over, and that's not something which stood out to me. But now looking at it, I saw that hand was kind of flopped down, and you can actually see it moves quite a bit. Yeah, so that is definitely loose. And again, I don't really want to blame San Martin for that. It's quite unfair. You know, a lot of things happen in transport, and I think most of the QC problems that people get, like on arrival movements, etc., is just down to the transportation. But aside from that, I really do like that visual, and I think they've done a great job of that. Now, moving on to that bezel, you can see it is a brushed stainless steel bezel insert. I do like brushed stainless steel inserts. Again, not for everyone, but I do like how they look. Really nice markers on there. Gives it quite a tactical appearance, a bit of a tool watch appearance, which is quite nice. The bezel is a coin edge bezel, and you know, being San Martin, it is going to be absolutely flawless. And very nice rotation. Perfect, no movement, perfectly aligned as per usual with San Martin. So definitely no issues there. Just gonna quickly check out the loom shot. I have no doubt it's gonna be amazing, because these hour markers and the quality of loom is gonna be the same as the previous 6.2 mass that I reviewed. So as I said, no issues with the loom at all. The dial is perfectly loomed. You've got the pip at the 12 o'clock on that bezel as well. Just on the seconds hand where the loom is applied quite thinly, you see just a bit of patchiness, but overall that is definitely not a problem. So that loom is perfect. There's no issues in that department at all. So I've put the watch on my time grapher just to show you the movement and how it works. So you've got a plus 5 seconds with the crown up position, which has jumped to plus 14. You've got a very healthy amplitude, a very low beat error. So for the most part, the movement is going to perform quite consistently. And of course, this is only a snapshot. You know, it will vary day to day. You know, it varies through temperature, your wrist position, how you keep it overnight, etc. So I think the movement's okay. It is performing how it should, and I do really want to get the case back off and see which type of ST1901 this is. So here's the Seagull ST1901 movement, which is in this San Martin. Now, I'm not too much of an expert on these movements. You know, my forte is a Seiko NH35, but I'm sure there's a lot of subscribers that know a lot more. So I would really benefit, and I think most people would benefit with your comments in the comment section below. Now, the part where I want to look at is this to my left here. Now, there is a version which Suges use, and they put something on there which is called a swan neck regulator. So it's like this swan neck metal piece which allows you to regulate this movement by the turn of the screw. Now this one, looking at it, you can also regulate this by using these two pins here, as you would do on the Seiko NH35. Now, as far as I'm aware, the one with the swan neck regulator is just slightly better. So the reason I want to look at this is because it is close to £300, you know, around $350 to $380. So I would expect, I think, the best version of this movement that I could possibly get. But just looking at the movement in general, it has some rather nice decoration, some nice feathering present, and you can see that column wheel movement, which is why it's called a column wheel movement. As you can see, the wheels do line up in a column. Let's just see. So that's the chronograph running. If we pause it, it has disengaged the chronograph, and we can reset it like that, and then press it again to engage, pause, disengages, and just resets. So that's the beauty of a mechanical movement. You can see every piece working, and it would have been nice with a see-through case back, I reckon, just to see this functioning. So as you can see, I have changed out the bracelet. I've put it on a really nice waxy leather strap. This strap is also available on my store. But yeah, I'll point on that. I'd really want to be careful of these lugs, because as I fitted this strap in, the lugs are kind of sharp and just slightly tight. So this is 20 millimeters, and it's sort of ripped up the side of my watch strap. So I'd definitely be careful changing straps on this. If you go for silicone, they'll probably be better, but it does look quite good on the leather. So while we're talking about the movement, let's give you an overview of the functionality. To your right, you've got that sub dial, which is a 30-minute timer, and then to your left, you got your running seconds hand, and as well as that chronograph hand in the center. So yeah, it's got all the functionality of a chronograph. Nice sub dials. Now let's check out the case and the crowns. So your pushers are non-screw-in, but they have gone for a screw-in crown for some reason. Now, because this watch has been out for quite a while, this flaw has been already spoken about, and that is basically, you know, screwing in the crown with a hand winding movement. It does present quite a serious flaw, because once you have fully wound it, then you cannot screw the crown in. Now, San Martin do acknowledge this on the website, and they've basically gone and said only turn it 15 times, and then you'll have enough time to screw it in. And if you have, overturned it, then just wait half an hour, which I think is very impractical. This is a near enough £300 watch from San Martin, from AliExpress, and that's a bit of a fob off, and I think you kind of have to go out your way in order to screw that watch in. Whereas in reality, any watch you get, it should be functional. So they've kind of overlooked that functionality by using this movement, which is why I said they should have gone to a clone 7750 movement, which you see on the Suitcase Daytona. Now, they've given us 100 meters of water resistance, so there really is no need for a screw down crown. But this is San Martin just trying to please everybody. They do like to listen to a lot of customer feedback, which is good. But I always say there can be such thing as too much feedback. They try to cater for quite a few different opinions. And you can see this with, for example, the Explorer Homage series, which they ended up doing God knows about 4, 5, 6 different variants. And I think, there has to be a limit to stop and kind of put your own thoughts out there and just limit it to a couple of different opinions. I think that's better overall. But yeah, I think that screw down crown is not needed. Now, in terms of the case finish, pretty basic case finish because it is a pretty basic case. You've got a circular brushed A face, quite fine in terms of the brushing they've gone with. The grain isn't that visible, so that's nicely done. And when you turn the watch to the side, you'll find a very highly polished side. Now, these are notorious for scratching. They scratch so easy, even from resting on things. So you really want to be careful with that. And you've got drilled lugs, which is always a bonus to have. Now, one thing that you'll notice on the crown, they've gone for this $sign again. And that I do find quite annoying. Let me be clear. I don't care what people put on the crowns and the case backs. I'm actually not too fussed if they're signed or not. But what I do like to see is brand consistency. And I think for San Martin, this late on as well, still having a confused branding is definitely no go. And the price has to come into it. And this is where I think a lot of people do ridicule Homage watches and AliExpress brands because they don't really help themselves. You've got the hex logo on the top. And on the crown, you've got this $sign logo, and it really does look out of place. And on the case back, you've got nothing. So that consistency is missing. And I think they had this also on that vintage diver, which was ridiculous. So let's not even go there. And yeah, I think I am ready to summarize really. So, the bad points, let's start off with those, is the price way too high for the movement used. Number two, that whole crown and hand winding function, I think that functionality has not been really looked at. The slight edginess, even with the bracelet, I have took it off, but the bracelet, it is quite edgy. It isn't as comfortable, but that is heavily dependent on how you wear it and what your wrist size is, so I won't focus on that too much. But the finishing on the bracelet, I will say, is usual San Martin quality, actually impeccable. I really like that finishing on the clasp. And yeah, but just it is a bit edgy and a bit uncomfortable for my wrist anyway. In terms of what's good, I like that bezel insert. That dial finish is perfect. It's really stunning to look at, and I like the configuration also. I like that it's a homage, but it's not a homage at the same time. The markers, the hands, beautifully done. I will excuse them for that dodgy minute hand because I don't know how that happened, and I don't really want to blame it on San Martin because I don't think that is quite fair. I can't see them sending one out with a hand that's not been correctly pressed in. So here's that San Martin on my 6.5-inch wrist. In terms of sizing, I do prefer the much smaller case because this has still got the 50mm lug to lug or just under. So I think for a 6.5-inch wrist, that's your absolute limit. 40mm or 41, I'm not too fussed about that. I've got watches that are slightly bigger. That's not an issue. And, visually it looks quite good. And, with a leather or a rubber strap, it will wear a lot more comfortable versus the bracelet. But the bracelet does look good, but it's just edginess, as I mentioned. It tends to wear quite well due to the movement as well. It's not too heavy on wrist, and the case, it has got a really nice weight as well, so it isn't overly heavy. It does seem to sit nice. So that's it for this review. I hope you guys found it informative. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So if you still want to go ahead and purchase this watch, then you can check out the link in the description. I would say save your money and buy something else. It does look good, but like I said, that functionality seems to be missing. But if you're okay with the crown and having to slightly go out your way before you set it, or changing the way you wind and screw the crown down, and you're okay with the bracelet, you don't find it edgy, or the case, then yeah, you definitely can go for this watch. But my opinion is, for the price, I'd definitely look around at something else. So that's it from me today, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.